The road to the World Tour, and it is getting exciting, Matilda Raynolds, because we're 4 down. We've got 2 rounds to go, and we've got a huge show ahead of us, including interrupting Alli Anderson's training ride. She's 1 hour in. We'll find out soon how far she's got to go.
Yeah, no, greatness doesn't sleep, Matt. She's out there already back on the grind, and we're at the pointy end. We've got some really exciting racing coming up. We've got the Squadron Energy Grafton to Inverell this weekend. Of course, the Q Tour coming in as our grand final the weekend. So we're back to back with racing.
And extended coverage for the Q Tour. We've so far had 1 day of coverage on each of the races when it's been a tour. But for the Q Tour, the original plan was just to do the Sunday. But with the Queen Stage, now we've got the Friday as well, where we've got the criterium where they're in amongst the Brisbane Cycling Festival. So that's going to be exciting to watch. We're going to be interviewing shortly Cam Scott, who will be one of the favourites for the crit. And some history was made at the Harbour City GP with Hannah Gianatti becoming the first under-19 rider to get herself up on the podium at a GC.
Yeah, it was just such close racing on the weekend as well in Sydney that we're going to unpack. And yes, the Q Tour, we added the South Bank criterium to the coverage, and I've raced there. It's in the heart of the city. It's going to be under lights. I can't wait for it, Matt.
So let's cut to the chase, Tills. Let's take a look at the results from the men's race. And it was dominated by Case Bodywrap. Kurt Ether was doing the lead out on stage 1 and kept leading out all the way to the line.
Yeah, Cam Scott sort of was looking in front, but Kurt was sort of waiting for him to come round. But I think he was pretty happy to take that win there. And, the pressure was on Case, Matt. They really set the precedent down in Tassie that they finally got that win in the criterium. And so this was a bit of a hometown race for them, and the pressure was on, and they absolutely delivered.
So then it was Case who backed up once again in stage 2. They managed to win that stage. This time it was Cameron Scott, and they made it the hat trick. They got 3 from 3, and he also won the final stage as well. He went out a pretty convincing winner given the amount of sprinting in the general classification. And what that has now done to the sum up overall league lead is that Jack Ward's still on top. He's on 381 points, but Cam Scott is closing in on 260.
Jack Ward did sneak a few bonus seconds coming in for the preems and on the podium in some of those stages. So again, Team Brennan are just dropping him off. He's not known as a sprinter, but for him to be taking on those guys, it was a fantastic result for all.
For the all-important JACO leaderboard for the under-23s, it's Jack Ward up against Zach Marriage, and Jack Ward won't be riding the Squadron Energy Grafton Inverell this weekend. So that's a big opportunity for Zach Marriage. And we saw some movement in the under-19s, Tills, with Ollie Djurdovic so impressive at the Harbour City. He's moved to the top of the Billigence under-19s league.
Yeah, and he's sitting in a top 10 overall, which is a fantastic result for him to be in under 19. And I just think he'd be soaking in so much experience at the moment and just really reveling in it. And we've spoken to him before. He's a great guy and he's really enjoying the tour. So, but they won't be at Grafton to Inverell, will they, Matt? The under 19s?
No, they won't because it's too long. So it's outside the rules of what they're allowed to race. Who will be there and is definitely allowed to race and will be starting as one of the favourites is Cam Scott, who was the winner of the Harbour City GP, and he joins us now. Cam,
hey
congratulations on the win.
Thanks. Thank you.
Your team went in with a fair bit of pressure because Case Bodywrap, this was their home race.
Yeah, we stacked our team on purpose. Some of our sponsors being from Sydney, they come out to watch the racing and they want to see us do well. So there was a bit of pressure on us to just get the job done.
And what about the pressure going toe-to-toe with Tristan Saunders, given is your partner Tristan's sister?
That's right, yes.
So how's that go when you guys are racing together?
Honestly, we've never had an issue. He's a great guy. We get along. We're also different style of riders. Maybe if we were both sprinters, there'd be a different dynamic. But we're actually quite different riders. But it's great to see him up in the mix.
Yeah, he has been riding really well, hasn't he, Tills?
Yeah, definitely. Now, Cam, I was really interested in your view. You've been in the World Tour, obviously, the last few years. How does the ProVelo Super League compare to the racing that you've been experiencing and the level that you've had the last few rounds?
It's been good. Obviously the Australian cycling is kind of struggling a little bit at the moment, but it is great to see that there is actually racing on. And I've been particularly impressed with the under-19s, especially the ARA guys. They're not afraid to get amongst it, and they've shown that they're actually being quite strong. So I think, it's never easy to win. So the level is definitely there and has potential to keep going up, I think.
So how important do you think the ProVelo Super League is in the development of those under-19s and the under-23s to get them ready for the World Tour?
Well, it's very difficult to go overseas to get exposure to that kind of level. So to have something here, all kind of bunched up at the start of the year, is a great way to set these guys up to then go to Europe or Asia if they do decide to do that later in the year.
So what are your ambitions now? You've had a couple of years at the World Tour. You've had a fair bit of your career where you've been juggling the track on the road. What's the plan now?
I will do a bit more track now. I'll do the national championships in a few weeks. I did the Oceanas recently and the National Madison last year. So, a bit more track. Also on the road, racing more in Asia this year. So I'm keen to get over there. I haven't done so much in Asia, so it'll be another experience.
And Cam, what's your thoughts on the next two rounds? Obviously, the Squadron Energy Grafton to Inverell this weekend. Are you hoping to get over the mountain, and also obviously the Q Tour the following week as well?
Yeah, Grafton's always a tough day. I've done well there in the past, so it's not impossible, but you never really know how you're going to feel. I think the wind can play a bit of a difference as well. Normally it's a headwind, but it's definitely it's going to be difficult. And the Q Tour as well, another creep. And I saw her racing on another motor racing circuit, so I guess that suits me a bit more. And the hilly stage, not so sure, and the time trial I'm not super keen for either, but
it's a rare breed who is keen for an individual time trial. For this coming weekend, there's been a big battle throughout the ProVelo Super League between your team, Case Bodywrap, and the Brennan team. They have gone on a recruitment drive. They've recruited Mark O'Brien. What are your thoughts on Brennan bringing Mark O'Brien in for the Grafton?
I heard the rumours, but now that it's true, he was one of the guys that nearly cracked me at the Warnie, so I'm sure they'll be all guns blazing this weekend, and they're going to be tough to keep under control, that's for sure.
Good luck keeping them under control. Congratulations on your win at the Harbour City GP. And it's really good for the ProVelo Super League to have a guy of your calibre who's been at the World Tour racing amongst the next generation of Aussies coming up. So thanks.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks,
Cam Scott with the Case Bodywrap team. What a performance it was for their whole team on the weekend to win all three stages. It was impressive.
Yeah, they were the favourites, but with that comes a lot of pressure, and particularly when the bosses are watching, that the sponsors and the people putting in the money for the team were on the sidelines. So it was a great return as well. I actually went into the Case bike shop here in Melbourne last week, and they were absolutely pumped. So it's just fantastic to see these sponsors getting really engaged in the ProVelo Super League, and also the coverage. They're loving seeing it so much on SBS. So it was a great round. And as you said, Matt, to have Cam Scott's experience from the World Tour, coming back in, speaking to some of these young riders, and just, and being impressed with the level of racing that he's seeing here domestically.
Yeah, it's been really good. It's always been something that those older riders that come back from having raced in Europe have contributed to helping build the next generation and get them ready for what they can expect to experience in Europe. And what we can expect from the last couple of rounds in the Women's League and the SBS Women's League is entertaining racing. If the Harbour City GP was anything to go by, Sophie Ma dominated the first two stages. She won stage one, she won stage two. And then heading into the last stage, I thought, well, this is going to be another Praties procession. But Alli Anderson had different ideas these tills?
Third stage, there was a breakaway, and it was really exciting because obviously Talia Appleton was fighting with all she had. Of course, Sophie Ma wasn't in that breakaway, so she had the opportunity to potentially take even more points and really close that gap on Sophie Ma. But Alli Anderson had a different ideas, and she really took home. She really utilised her sprint that she's had on the track and capitalised on that last stage, taking it 0-0. It was a tie mat pretty much on a count back. An amazing result.
We could have put them on a soccer pitch and had them do a penalty shootout. It was very entertaining racing. So what that has done now to the overall SBS League standings is that it's Sophie Ma who leads. She's on 465 points. Talia Appleton is in second place on 401 points. Alli Anderson is then in third position on 332 points. Looking at the Jayco Under-23 League, it's the same top three: Sophie Ma, Talia Appleton, and Alli Anderson. And one of the success stories, particularly from the Harbour City GP, was Hannah Gianatti finishing in third place in the general classification there in that race. She's moved to 10th in the overall SBS League. She is now in first place in the Diligence Under-19. So she's been having a very good campaign. Well, we said at the start that we're going to interrupt her training ride, Alli Anderson, so we can't interrupt it too much longer. Alli, where do you join us from? How far in, how far to go?
I'm exactly an hour and 3 minutes in, and I've got 3 hours to go. So a little bit grim, but that's all right. It's a nice little intermission. But I'm at the base of Lofty, Mount Lofty here in Adelaide. It's a beautiful day, so it's a good day to have a few hours.
And it was a beautiful day on Sunday. What a way to win with it being on a countback, and you and Talia trying to work out. Okay, I got this time bonus, you got that time bonus. Well, then it's on a countback. That was best interview that we've had.
Oh, well, luckily we're not mathematicians and we're cyclists, because that was horrible maths. I think I was pretty confident in once I'd crossed the line, because I knew I'd had her on the other stages as well. So I thought there's like a points race on the track. If you both end up on the same points, and whoever crosses the line first at the end wins. So I assumed that's how it would work. Luckily it did. But yeah, it was a great battle out there and I had a lot of fun.
Alli, talk us through those last few laps of the final stage. Were you trying to, sort of duck and weave one another, or you were keen with your lead out? Were you confident that you could beat Talia in that sprint?
I was a little bit nervous coming into those last 10 laps. Talia had me in all those intermediates, and I was giving it everything I had. I wasn't trying to save the legs or anything. But I think the whole break started playing cat and mouse. So I just had to put on the facade that I didn't care if the break got ridden back in the last 10 laps. I did very much care. But I was like, whatever. Like, I've got a sprinter in the bunch. Like, she can win as well. That's fine by me. So yeah, it was really nice to be able to have the confidence from my team, and also know that if it did come back, that they would still be able to get the job done. Like, that's really nice to have. So I'm really proud of all the girls and how they rode. Sorry.
Was there much talk within the breakaway?
Oh, there was a few times I had a little bit to say, but that's unlike me. But I think it's all it was such at the end of the day, it's like the mind games. I had to pretend I didn't care if we got brought back. I didn't want to win, but everyone's there to win. So I think it was really fun, and I think it was really good to see Hannah and some of the other girls just really riding really strong. So it's good to see that everyone's happy to race, and I knew Talia would be keen to get away. So when I attacked, I made sure she was still on my wheel, and it worked perfectly.
Oh, it's such tactical good work, Alli. And you've reminded everyone not to play poker with you. But you really are one of the most experienced, even though you're still so young, experienced riders in Butterfields. You've had a few seasons in Europe and that experience previously with ARA Skip Capital in the team in Belgium. Do you feel that? Because even in the Warnie, we heard you quite vocal in your breakaway as well. You were like the UN. You were getting everyone to work for you. Do you feel that you are actually a bit more of a senior rider in the peloton at the moment?
I think I just want to use my experience that I do have in the best way possible to help like the girls around me, especially on my team. Because, I mean, I think we're really seen as the underdog, so it's so nice to be able to get a win with the girls, and they're all done really, like they were all significant parts in that. So I think, just trying to pass on and use the information that I do have, it's really satisfying to be able to help out. Sometimes it comes out maybe not so nice, but I do mean well. But I think when I'm racing, I get a bit antsy, so sometimes it comes out the wrong way.
So how antsy and motivated are you for the Grafton Inverell this weekend?
Oh, well, winning the Sydney Harbour GP actually gave me a lot of points. So I've caught up to both Sophie and Talia a little bit more than I thought I would be. So definitely very keen to rip in, and I'm really excited to race.
And what happens after the ProVelo Super League for you?
I'll go straight into track nationals a few days after the Q Tour, and then I fly to Europe on the 4th of April for a big racing block based in Belgium.
Wow,
Excellent.
That's fantastic, Alli.
We're hopefully you don't get stopped on the side of the road for an interview with us.
Oh, well, I don't mind, honestly. I rest the legs.
Well, Alli, keep that chat happening. I know that as long as you keep that smile going, they'll forgive you whatever you say. I can just imagine you just barking off orders and then just giving that cheeky smile you have. Good luck.
Mean, I'm so happy to be able to race against all these girls, and I'm keen to see what the next 2 rounds bring.
Yeah, that's
congratulations. It was awesome. Harbour City GP was fantastic. Best of luck for the weekend ahead as well.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Alli.
Well, Alli Anderson rode so you could hear all the vehicles coming.
No, sorry about that, everyone.
But she was so good and so calm under a really high pressure situation on the weekend. It was outstanding.
Yeah, and she does have a lot of experience, Matt. She's actually been in the Australian team quite a few times when she was as a 19-year-old as well, and had that guidance with Donna Ray Zelensky, both at TDU and at Cadell's. So she does come with a lot of experience. She's already done a few stints in Belgium, but she had some really, really bad luck last year. She came down with a lot of sickness. So it's just fantastic to see her back, healthy, performing really well. And you can see just there how happy she is just to be back racing and how well, and it seems like she's got a sniff, Matt. She's near the podium. She's closed it down. What could be potentially?
Yeah, exactly. And on the topic of potential, what about our next guest? She's in the under-19s, leads the Billiches under-19s league. She was 3rd at the Harbour City GP. Hannah Gianatti, she rides for the ARA Skip Capital team. Hannah, big weekend for you in the Harbour City GP. Congratulations.
Thank you. I didn't really expect it to go the way it did because, it was pretty much a crit series, but I'm really happy with the way it turned out.
And what about that last one, the motor racing circuit? And were you listening then to Alli and how tactical it was in her mind?
Yeah. I wasn't sure which way it would go because I was not sure if they'd chase it back down, but she wasn't as mean as she said she was. She didn't seem that mean at all.
And Hannah, how was it for you to be in that break? When Alli is potentially yelling at you, are you someone that, I guess, because you are a younger rider, are you responding to that, or are you thinking, "Oh no, I'm gonna look after myself here and do what's best for me"?
Well, yeah, I thought maybe I've got a bit of legs and I want to keep this going, so I'll pull to the front. I was dying by the time I bridged across to the group, so I was thinking I'll just do my best to make them not hate me so they don't try to drop me later on.
I see that you've got the jersey in the background from Elisa Longo Borghini. So
yeah.
Is she a rider that inspires you?
Yeah, she is. And Amanda Spratt is good friends with my coach, so I've gotten to know her pretty well, and she inspires me as well. And so when my coach went over to Italy last year, he went and met them all, and he brought me back a jersey, which was really nice.
Nice. Who's your coach?
David Winfield. He's a local coach, so I get to train with him all the time and stuff.
And the style of rider that Spratty is, or that Elisa Longo Borghini is that the style of rider that you consider yourself to be?
Oh, I hope to be, but I feel I'm a bit more of a climber, but I'm trying to do as best I can in all the disciplines, like trying to get my sprint on and yeah.
And so, Hannah, it has seemed like you've been on this trajectory really with the ProVelo Super League. Have you felt like, how's it been for you? Has it felt like your confidence has grown, or, you're sort of taking strides each round?
Yeah, I took a bit of a dip in the Tassie round because I got sick for that and I ended up at the back really quickly, and I considered myself to be a climber, so that was a bit of a hit to the confidence, but I've gotten it back after this weekend, which is good. So I'm just trying to get my climbing legs back for Brizzy and for the Europe block as well.
So when does the Europe block get underway? What's the program there?
So we're going over for 3 months mid-April. So I'm going over with ARA, which will be an awesome experience to go with the team, and hopefully they'll share their experience with us.
And you're still studying at the moment?
Yeah. So I do online, like distance education, so I can fit in training and the overseas block without missing out on too much.
It's always going to be hard though when you're away from home to go, okay, I need the discipline to keep studying. That is going to be a challenge for anybody. I don't care how disciplined you are.
Yeah, definitely. Especially when there's such like good things to go out and see, because we'll be based in Belgium in Oudenaarde, so it'll be hard to stay focused, but I'll try my best.
Any tips, Tills?
Oh, no, you'll be fine. Once you've seen a cobble, you've seen them all. You'll be fine, Hannah. But I am really glad to hear that you are studying. That's really a big key part, as well as I know as a part of that ARA Skip Capital team. And I think that balance, particularly at your age, is really important. So make sure not to sound like your mother, but make sure you finish those studies. But Hannah, what's the goal? And obviously, you want to be pro, but what does that look like? What are you trying? What will be a success after this season for you?
I feel like if I'm selected for the Junior Worlds team, I really was gunning for that spot last year, but I just missed out. So I'm really hoping to get on this year and do well if they're running the Junior Worlds, that is. So we'll see. Yeah,
there's a bit to watch in this space with Rwanda hosting World Championships as to with some of the civil and political unrest there at the moment as to what happens. I hope it all goes ahead really smoothly, and geez, it'd be a shame to miss out on that opportunity to go to Africa and ride the Junior Worlds, Hannah.
Yeah, and also it's got lots of hills in it, so I'm hoping I'll get my legs on for that.
Yeah, so we've worked out pretty quickly, Tills. She likes the hills. She's mentioned it in any response to any answer that we've thrown at her.
But she won the crit. She won. She was on the podium on the motorsport. So yeah, it's fantastic.
Well, that's versatility. How long have you been racing for? When did you get started?
I started when I was 13, so that was about 4 years ago now. So 4.5. So.
And what got you into it?
My dad bought me a gravel bike for my birthday, and I started racing on that about 4 months later after he took me to watch the Penrith Cycling Club crit, and he asked if I wanted to do it. I was like, yes, of course.
Fantastic. So the Penrith Connect, that's the connection with Amanda Spratt then as well?
Yeah, definitely.
Well, that jersey that I've got behind me, that's a jersey from Amanda Spratt that she actually signed and sent to my daughter in 2017.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah,
that's
it's
awesome.
Very cool. Yeah, so I've told this story many times, but one of the ways that if I'm watching my daughter play netball and she's a little bit flat, I just say Spratty, and she knows, okay, I've got to fight, I've got to keep going.
Got to make her proud.
Yeah, exactly. Well, Hannah, congratulations on your result, the Harbour City GP. Good luck for Q Tour, because you're not going to be able to ride the Grafton, and rest assured, everybody following the ProVelo Super League is now following you.
Awesome. Thank you for having me.
Thanks for coming on. Bright future, Tills, very bright.
Yeah, and how good is it, Matt, to get to know these men and women, or almost boys and girls at such a young age, to engage them and understand where they're coming from, and tell their stories before they do enter the World Tour.
I love it. That's the best part about the ProVelo Super League for me. And to hear the confidence in her voice as well, to get an understanding of who her inspirations have been, the way she got started in the sport, juggling the study as well. And I liked you putting on your mum hat there. That was very good.
Yeah, the study I think is really important. I think that they are in a rush. They want to make it, but I think to have that behind them, even though you know they're going to make it, cycling careers can be very fickle. And I think to just pause and have something behind you. And Matt, at that age as well, it's a great balance to have that you're not always in that space. It can be very consuming to be training and because there's a lot of time in Belgium. Hannah's going to find out that you can only train, particularly her age, 3 to 4 hours maybe. That's a lot of time that's left through the day, and get off the TikToks, the doom scrolling, and get into your study. It actually does help you, I think, become better at your training. The best that I've ever trained is when I've been busy, because you become really efficient.
Yeah, and also I believe that it helps you perform better. As you mentioned, if you're only training 3 to 4 hours a day, and if you've gone through a bad period of, a couple of bad results or whatever it may be, not performing at the level that you wanted to, if you've got nothing else to do, that just percolates in your mind. Whereas if you've got another distraction, you can put that bad performance away for a moment, get on with something else, and then hit the reset button for the next day when it's time to go training again.
100%. Yeah, I really agree with that. And it can be really consuming if all you're doing is cycling, just in your headspace as well. So yeah, she seems like, but she's got a great head on her shoulders, and really excited to see her back for the Q Tour.
And clearly some good climbing legs that sprint pretty well based on her performance at the Harbour City GP. Well, let's take the PSL pulse with Angus. Angus was on the side of the road. You had a massive weekend, Angus, up in Sydney.
Weekend, big 3 days. I was doing a lot of the venue commentary as well. We had graded races before the PSL races in Cronulla, so it was just a massive 3 days, but great to be around the bike racing. And what an amazing 3 days of racing we had at the Harbour City GP. In the women's race, look, obviously very impressive from Alli Anderson, but I just think to have such a tight battle throughout that race and all culminating in the finishing, those last sort of 10 or 15 minutes of the women's race on stage 3, that was amazing to see. I was on the sideline trying to do all of the maths. I thought if Alli Anderson won, Talia's second, we would have a count back. So sort of calling that out on the mic, building a bit of that suspense. It's exactly what we got. And I think that really drew a lot of people in who were watching, which was fantastic. But I do really want to call out how impressive Nicole Duncan was from the weekend. She was riding as an individual. She normally rides with the Praddy's team. She was here by herself. She took 3rd on stage 1, 4th on stage 2. Really impressive sprint, but also in the Cronulla crit, she jumped across to a pretty threatening breakaway at one point. So, yeah, very impressive from Nicole Duncan.
That is solid. So we missed much of that because we only covered the 3rd stage, which was the last day of the Harbour City GP. And that's the brilliance for us, Tills, of having Angus on the ground to picking up those smaller moments. For you personally, though, Angus, from a commentary perspective, I'm not sure what it was like for you. I know what it's like for me when you're trying to work out, okay, these are the time bonuses, this is who's win. I get nervous throughout the race trying to work that out myself to make sure that you've got it right.
100%, because you're almost the voice of reason. You're the person that people are relying on to say the correct information. I'd read the tech guide before coming into this. I knew what all of the bonus seconds were, how many sprints there were, all of these sorts of things. So in my head, I feel like I knew it, but obviously there's a bit of extra pressure when you're out there. People are listening to you. They're sort of hanging off every word when you're almost trying to predict what's going to happen, but what you're explaining is how the race will be decided. Obviously, everyone's very interested in that, so you don't want to get it wrong. I was reasonably confident, but at the same time, I didn't want to look like a fool, say, this is going to happen. The bonus seconds are, 10, 6, and 4, and I end up getting it completely wrong. And the outcome of the race is actually much simpler than I've made it. But thankfully, it all worked out in the end. I managed to get those correct, and we had a really interesting finish. And really nice to see the sportsmanship as well between Talia Appleton and Alli Anderson at the end there. Both of them, they finished the stage, went over, just stood next to each other, waiting to find out the outcome. It could have been very easy for each of them to just go their separate ways and go and hang out with their teams or remove themselves. But I thought that was really nice because obviously it gave us a great interview at the end, some great vision. I really like that from those two.
You could see the disappointment, Matilda, the disappointment in Talia Appleton as it dawned on her, oh no, I've lost this in account back. She looked like she was on the brink of tears.
Yeah, and I think just because of how hard the Tassie Tour was with Charlie, obviously losing the SBS Leaders jersey as well, the difference in first and second, you just could see it in a split screen essentially, the joy from Alli Anderson, and then Talia Appleton, understandably devastated that she wasn't able to get that, because it really would have closed that gap, if not almost overtaken Sophie Ma. I think she would have been still just a handful of points off Sophie, but there's still 2 really big rounds to go. But Angus, the men's race, before we preview the Grafton to Inverell, was there any way that the teams could have unseated Keish Bodywrap in this tour?
Look, it's a really good question. I think the short answer is probably no, as disappointing as that might be to hear. I think Keish were really dialed in for this one. Their riders have almost been too good for their own good, because what that has meant is some of their riders have gone to the Tour Down Under, others have gone to go and do track things. One of their riders has gone overseas early. So they've lost a lot of their sort of marquee riders, which has meant that for the PSL, they've still had incredible riders turning up, but they've been missing that like true A team. And coming into Sydney, their home race, they really tried to turn it on here. And for all of those other teams, especially Brennan, who have lost a couple of their big riders, so they've sort of come down a fraction, Keish have stepped up a notch, made it really hard for anybody to challenge them. I think their big opportunity was the third stage around that circuit. Cam Scott ended up getting a little bit isolated towards the end. John Carter, MVP ride from John for that stage. In my mind, he was on the front driving that breakaway all day, it seemed. But that sort of opportunity came towards the end of stage 3 to try and unseat them. I think in the process of getting into that move and actually making it to the end at the front, everyone was just completely just on their hands and knees. So, that was the moment to attack, and I think everyone had just run out of gas by that point.
And what I really liked about that final stage is we saw a couple of under-19 riders in the front group.
Yeah, definitely. I think ARA Skip Capital, we were looking at the teams classification at the end, and there were only 2 teams that managed to get 3 riders, I think it was, in the front split there, ARA Skip Capital and the Brennan squad. So for one of those teams to be under-19s only is incredibly impressive. Ollie Jirovic, very strong ride from him. Ben Coates as well, a local Sydney boy. Both of them incredibly strong throughout the weekend. So, yeah, I was very impressed with ARA.
Yeah, and Jonas Shelvington was in the break right from the very start. It was a big performance as a team.
100%. But, yeah, so looking forward to Grafton this weekend, men's and women's. I think we're in for a pretty big weekend, I'm hoping. I was looking through the start lists, again, trying to pick one men's, one women's sort of favourite for the race, and it's so tricky trying to narrow it down. I think it's a little bit easier almost in the men's side. There's one person I think, I'm a big Cam Scott fan. I'm in this Cam Scott fan club. I'll pick him again. I think he's my favourite. He did incredibly well at the Warnie. Grafton to Inverell suits him really well. But we have got a new addition to the Brennan squad, which came out early when we were talking to Cam, which is Mark O'Brien. So I think that's going to throw a big spanner in the works for how that race is going to unfold, especially him sitting on that squad. So they'll have a couple of options, that's for sure.
Yeah, I see that as a move by Tim Decker. Tim Decker wants Jack Ward to win the ProVelo Super League. So Jack's not going to be there on the weekend. He's not going to be at the Grafton Inverell because he's riding the Mountain Bike National Championships. So the recruitment of Mark O'Brien is to try and stop other riders getting points and closing the gap down to Jack Ward. I think it's a smart move by Tim Decker, and Tim and Mark have known each other for probably 20 plus years.
Yeah, I know that Marco did some training down there with Tim Decker and the boys when he was in Adelaide. And also he's just come off an incredible Peaks Challenge where I think he rode 6 hours 38 was his total ride time at that event. So I spoke to Marco there, and he said that if given the opportunity, he does have free rein to go up the road and hopefully take the day. But remembering with the men's event, so it is, it's over 60 years old, the Grafton to Inverell. It's similar to the Warnie. It has such a rich history, but it's 220 kilometres with over 3,000 metres of climbing. So it is going to be a challenge for Cam Scott, I think, but they certainly, I think Julian Baudry as well is going to be a strong one for Team Brennan. So I think Marco will certainly try to take him with him. But yeah, it's a lot of climbing early on, isn't it, for these boys? And if they sense that they're around them, they're going to try to put them on the ropes, but it's a long way to the finish after that main climb.
Yeah, 100%. You've obviously got the defining climb, the Gibraltar Range, sitting in the middle of the race. Well, actually, probably first half, I would say, because you end up with, you can see selections up there, and I think over the years you usually get a front group forming. Let's say it's about 10 riders or so. That often ends up coming back because, like you say, Tills, there's so much time from that point. You get to the top of that race, you still have, I think it's about 140, 150 Ks to go to get to the finish line, and it's still very tough riding. So if you end up with a group of really strong climbers, they make a selection up there. They're usually not necessarily the riders you would expect to be able to motor for the next 150 Ks. So I think that's why I think to Cam Scott for something like this. I don't expect him to lose a dramatic amount of time. Definitely think he's the sort of rider who can just power on all day, bring it back. I agree, Mark O'Brien, he's going to be a massive headache for all of the riders in this group. Julian Baudry as well, very strong rider. I'm looking forward to see how he goes. And of course, Zach Marriage. It's a bigger opportunity for him to bring some points back on Jack Ward, and I think he'll be very motivated turning up to the start line.
Yeah, I'm going to go with Zach, actually, as the man to win. I think that Mark O'Brien is going to make life incredibly difficult up the climb. He needs to get rid of Cam Scott. He knows he stands zero chance in a sprint against Cam Scott. Most people do. But he might give himself a chance against Zach Marriage. I'm still backing Zach in a sprint against Marco. Marco would probably do the same. Marco is going to make this race one of the toughest editions of the Grafton Inverell that we've seen in recent years. But this is just huge for Butterfields Ziptrack racing, and this is the massive opportunity for Zach Marriage.
Yeah, completely agree. And especially I was sort of loosely following Marco's ride at Peaks on the weekend as much as I could in between all of the Harbour City GP riding, and his time at Peaks was just obscene. I have no idea how someone could ride that quickly. So his form is obviously unbelievably good. And this sort of course, the back section of Three Peaks in between Mount Hotham and getting out to the back of Falls there, it's actually fairly similar riding, I would say, to what you get in that back half of Grafton. You're just on like big, rough, chunky chip seal roads, rolling hills all day. Mark O'Brien has obviously shown he can just motor along throughout those sections. So for sure, he'll be one of the big favourites to watch.
So the coverage for that will be on Sunday on SBS. What about the women's race, Angus?
Women's race, again, very exciting. I think we've got a couple of big names in the men's race. We've almost got more competition, at least for the big favourites, I think, coming into the women's race. Sophie Ma is probably the biggest favourite. She's going to be the one on most people's mind. But I'm actually going to move towards the Meridian Blue presented by 99 Bikes Team. I think Healy Bennett's got a really good shot here. She had a very strong ride at the Women's Warrnambool Classic. She obviously performs really well here in these sort of classics, really tricky type races. She also is going to be very motivated coming out of the Harbour City GP. As you mentioned earlier, she posted up a lap early at the first stage. She was a great sport about it, but that's a really frustrating thing to happen to her. That's going to really light the fire within her, and I think she's going to turn up here extremely motivated for Grafton for sure.
Yeah, and adding to that team again, Angus, is obviously Lauren Bates as well. So I'm not sure, and it wasn't the best round for Keely because she also crashed, and so hopefully she's come out of that crash okay. But for the women, we are talking about a sort of a different style of rider because they do start at Mount Mitchell and then go to Inverell. If you look at the profile, it does seem like the whole stage is almost downhill, but it can be very deceiving. It's 110 kilometres with 1,000 meters of climbing, and there's a lot of launch pads there. In previous years, it has been a bunch sprint and a reduced bunch sprint with that race. But I do think it really depends what the wind does. It's a grim day if it's just a block headwind. You honestly doing 25k an hour, just begging for it to be getting to the finish line. But the last time that we raced this, it was a cross tailwind and the peloton split to pieces. So I'm really curious to see how it's going to play out. But it is another event where it could be anyone's. It could be that sprinter, that climber. And so there's a lot of opportunity, I think, in the women's. Unfortunately for Meridian Blue, it does sound like Alyssa Pilates is still suffering from some concussion symptoms and maybe out. But again, we've just heard from Alli Anderson. She's got a sniff of it, Angus, and it sounds like she's extremely motivated to see how far she can close this gap on Brady's team.
Well, just before you respond to that, Angus, on Alli Anderson, what about the strength of her team now for this race where she's got Caitlin Nicholson alongside her on the back of having won the Lockhart Energy Warrnambool Women's Classic?
Yeah, they're going to be definitely one of the strong teams. You've sort of got like a big three teams that have emerged in the women's race. You've got Praddy's, you've got Butterfields, Ziptrack Racing, and then you've got Meridian Blue presented by 99 Bikes. All three of them turn up with a really strong level of depth. And I think for the Butterfields team turning up here, so you've got Caitlin Nicholson, won the Women's Warrnambool Classic, Alli Anderson, obviously just off the Harbour City GP win, Odette Lynch is their sprinter. I've been really impressed as well with Summer Nordmeyer on their team as well. She's been doing a lot of really fantastic lead-outs for Odette. So that's 4 riders there. And I haven't even mentioned Rachel Wales as well. So there's a lot of depth just sitting in that one team. And we talk about the course, Tills. I agree. It's not as selective as the men's race. You don't have that big Gibraltar range climb, but the wind is for sure going to be a deciding factor. If you end up with a cross tailwind, a crosswind, there are a lot of very exposed sections. That's where the team becomes so important, trying to get multiple riders up the front there, making those selections. We saw what Praddies were doing at the Warrnambool Classic as well. And into that back half of the race, if you end up with a really challenging, really selective race, a lot of crosswind action, it really opens the door for those attacks as well, as opposed to just a group coming together in a bunch sprint. Alli Anderson, I was speaking to her, I think it was after the Warnie, talking about how she missed the first round. She's going to have a bit of ground to catch up. And she came in with a very positive mindset of, look, I've lost a bit of time. I'm a little bit behind the 8 ball, but I'm not going to go out without a fight. And I'm going to turn up for every single round, really do my best to bring that one back. And I think she's going to be turning up here for sure, ready to fight, looking for all of those opportunities. And we can see what happens when you give her just a little bit of space. Very clever as well, hearing her talk about everything that was going through her mind. She's obviously a big strategist. Definitely get her on a poker table sometime soon. I'm sure she'll do well. She'll be looking for all those opportunities in the back half, no doubt.
So who's the number one favourite from both of you for the women's Grafton?
Yeah.
I'm going to go with Talia Appleton.
Yeah. Well, I want to go for Talia, but I'm going to say Alli. I'll say Alli Anderson. My heart goes out to Talia just with how much she's been fighting these last 2 rounds. But I think, and I think just it'd be interesting how Praddies shake it all out and how it goes with their team. Obviously, Sophia Salmons is also a name there that she'll be wanting to really make her, show her colours a lot more in this race, particularly before the Q Tour. But I can go with Alli Anderson on this one.
I'm going to say Keely Bennett, Meridian Blue, and 1 point just to finish this one up. I don't think yet so far, if you have one-day races and then the GC for a tour as sort of equivalent, and based off the ProVelo points on offer, they are equivalent, we're yet to see a repeat winner, men's or women's. We've had a different winner every single round. So I'm really looking forward to see, can anybody double up this time around, or have we got 2 brand new winners for the Grafton to Inverell?
Well, watch this space, and we're going to be joining, or you're going to be joining us in commentary. Looking forward to having you in the commentary box with us, Angus. Yeah,
very excited. Heading down to Melbourne in the studio. Looking forward to it.
Fantastic. Angus, thanks. We'll see you on the weekend.
Will do. Catch you later.
Taking the PSL pulse, and taking the pulse when we go beyond the Squadron Energy Grafton Inverell. The last round is the Q Tour. As we mentioned at the start, Tills, we're extending the coverage for that race Friday as well as the Sunday. Plus, they've got the Echelon Club. Limited tickets are available for the Criterium and the Moreton Bay Hinterland Queen Stage, where the last big decisions will be made in the first ever edition of the ProVelo Super League.
Oh, it's going to be so tight, Matt. And just the desperation from those riders that are at the top end of fighting for that contract. They know that guaranteed, if they win, they will have a contract with Jayco Alula as a stagiaire, and obviously a year's contract in the women's with Liv Alula, Jayco. So, there's a lot to fight for, and I'm just so thrilled that we're going to be able to bring it to everyone live on SBS.
Can't wait to be part of it on the weekend, Tills. Until Sunday. I'll catch you later.
I'll see you there. Thanks, everyone.